All right, the meeting of the Health Profession Subcommittee of Education and Health will come to order. Can we call the roll?
Senator McPike. Here. Senator Hashmi. Here. Senator Pillion. Here. Senator Suderline.
Yes.
Senator Donovan.
Here.
Senator Edwards.
Here.
Senator Newman. Here. Senator Saslaw. Senator Barker.
Aye.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
All right. What we're going to do today is we're going to first take one thing that's not a bill. It's a resolution, and it will. We're going to make a recommendation to have it re-referred to the Rules Committee because they basically deal with those things. Then we're going to have the presentations by three patrons dealing with the abortion issue. And at the end of the presentations for the three bills that are dealing with that subject, then we will have public testimony. And what we're going to do is have 5 to 10 minutes for all the three patrons to be able to present their bills, and then 5 minutes for those in favor of the bills and 5 minutes for those who are opposed to the bills. And then we will get back to the rest of the docket. So that's sort of where we are on things. Does anybody want to make a motion to recommend having the Senate Resolution 87 from Senator Chase be re-referred to the Rules Committee?
So moved.
All right, we got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, no. All right. All right, that is unanimously re-referred there. All right, Senator Newman, you can start out on this.
Sit right there, yeah. Where you want me? Yeah, sit right there. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
This is going to be Senate Bill 1385. There is good news this morning. I feel better than I sound. I had a food allergy last night, and I'm fine. So if you don't mind a little weak voice, we're going to work our way through it. Also, Senator McPike, I wanted to congratulate him to come on the committee as well. Welcome to the Senate Education Health Committee. Mr. Chairman, let me give you just a couple overviews of the bill, and then Secretary Kay Cole James and I are going to go over it a little bit line by line so you understand it. Okay. One is kind of why we are here. Clearly, after the Dobbs decision, there are decisions that states can make. This bill I see as a middle ground. I'll be very clear with you that I'm going to vote for all the bills, but this is one that I think is one that's middle ground. We started this process with the idea that we wanted to find a bill that had what we thought was more broad support by Virginians. Two, that initiated itself at what we understand to be pain capable. And what that means is that when a baby can feel pain, the science, I think, is pretty clear that it's around 15 weeks. You're going to hear testimony to that effect. So that is why we've picked this. We have done away in this bill with the trimester system. So you'll see there's stricken language that does that. And the proposed law is now set at 15 weeks, which corresponds to the pain-capable times. We have worked, Mr. Chairman, on this with the Governor's Office, the Secretary of Health, delegates, and stakeholders. We think we have what's a carefully crafted bill that also supports mothers. We think that it's common sense protection also for the unborn. It does establish that certain types of abortions are still lawful until 15 weeks. That's nearly 4 months. There are exceptions in this bill. You may have heard about the lack of exceptions, but there are exceptions for life, health of the mother. There is also rape and incest in this bill, and we'll talk in a little more about other exceptions, which are those kind of medical exceptions that you're expecting to see in a bill. They are in this bill as well. Mr. Chairman, at 15 weeks, I think, here again, you'll find that a baby feels pain, and it's time at that point for us to protect that child. The medical guidelines for fetal anesthesia during fetal surgery is also set at about 15 weeks. So when you think about having that surgery on that child, we've tried to line up the science during those times. Let me just mention quickly, and you will see it in the bill, what it is not, because here again, I think there's been a lot of misinformation about this. This bill does not remove the ability for miscarriage, stillbirths, removing and ectopic pregnancy, and in no way does this bill criminalize a woman at all. Those were items that I think have been put out that are just not quite correct. This bill also has a higher threshold for medical standards. Physicians are using their best clinical judgment, which is an objective, not a subjective, as to whether or not it's 15 weeks. So no more are we doing some of those odd things that you have to do to figure out exactly where the child is. We're asking the doctor just to use his best clinical judgment. Clearly, the bill also has the born alive portion in it and the clinical, medical, and legal protections for the born alive section. Mr. Chairman, we also know, and I think you know as on Senate Finance, we have also encouraged there to be just a slew of budgetary items that help support a woman that don't have to go with this bill, but we thought it was also the right thing to do. So, Mr. Chairman, if you will, we can just run quickly through the bill. I think you'll find that most of the information that is critical is on page 5 and 6, and Secretary James and I will kind of go through those items. Mr. Chairman, on line 270 through 273, if you have the bill up, this is where abortion does remain legal up until that time when a fetus can feel pain, 15 weeks in that best clinical judgment. So that's in those lines. The next line, if you'll go down to 274 to 280, Mr. Chairman, this is where the life of the mother, health of the mother, rape and incest are all in that section. The third section is 284 through 285. That's the born alive provisions. You've seen that in this bill, and you've seen it in other bills in the past. Also on page 5, if you go up a little bit to 263 to 265, this clarifies what an abortion does not include, and this is where you get the miscarriage, the stillbirths, the ectopic pregnancies. All those exemptions are in that section. Mr. Chairman, you also will notice 263 of page 5, that is where we continue to keep the same penalty that there has been for decades in the code. We did not up the penalties in these in any way. So with that, just quickly, I think I can turn it over to Secretary Kay Coles-James to go over just a couple of the other portions.
Thank you, Senator Newman. And thank you for this carefully crafted, and I know the amount of work that has gone into trying to reach consensus. As a former Secretary of Health in Virginia and one who cares deeply about women and children, I think that what you have in front of you is a piece of legislation which addresses both those needs. We need not pit the mother against the child. We can, and in fact, in this legislation, takes care of both. First of all, looking at the first section that protects health, I think it's important that we look and understand that there are circumstances, there are those who would not like to see rape and incest in the bill. It is there, and it is a consensus and something that we as Virginians ought to all be able to come together on. Consensus, by definition, means everybody doesn't get everything they want. This right here and what Senator Newman has crafted looks at both women and children and protects both. If the abortion is being performed after 15 weeks, the mother falls under one of the exceptions and she deserves quality care at a hospital. Is that not something else that I think we can all agree on? If an abortion is going to happen, shouldn't it happen in a facility that both protects mother and child and is the highest quality standard of care that we can give in that situation? Not only is the hospital setting important for care, but the need for the medical professional. If an abortion is going to be performed, should it not be performed by the highest quality medical professional that can step in at that moment? So I think what you see in front of you and crafted in this legislation is something that does both, provides the best facility and quality of care, speaks to the fact that the best medical professional should be involved in the care at that time. And I think one of the provisions that I am so glad that Senator Newman included, and you'll see in this legislation, is the quality of care that must be extended to a baby if it survives abortion. And I think that's something that we as all Virginians can rally around as well. If a child is born alive as a result of an abortion, should we not at that time provide the best protections and quality of care? So I think what you have in front of you is a piece of legislation that supports women and supports children. And as someone who cares deeply about both, I want to congratulate the senator on a very well-crafted piece of legislation.
All right.
Our bill.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation of the bill. And we will now move on to Senator Hackworth. He will be the second one with presenting a bill here.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning.
I want to thank y'all for serving on this committee. I know this is a sensitive subject and very emotional on both sides, and I want to respect that. I also want to thank our chief co-patron on this bill, Senator Newman, and for his help and also the presentation of his bill. Steve always does such a wonderful job. I envy him when he presents something. I'm like, I want to say what he says. But I guess that comes with experience, and I appreciate that. But I also will say that I will support any bill at any stage of life that reels back the current abortion laws that we have here currently in the Commonwealth. And Senate Bill 1284, which is the bill that you have in front of you, this bill differs somewhat from the bill that was just presented. And the reason is, Mr. Chair, this is what I believe. And what I've always believed, I remember when I was in high school, a group of us caught a bus, John, at the Walmart parking lot and rode all night to Washington, D.C. For the annual March to Life. And actually today I think marks the 50th anniversary of that. And it really changed my life on the perspective. But the last year when Roe versus Wade was overturned, I knew that this was the bill that I had to put in because it's what I really believe. I understand that in the passing of legislation that there is a duty and a commitment to support these children not only inside the womb but also outside the womb once they arrive. We do this by alternative options, by providing support for women facing unintended pregnancies, such as financial assistance, parenting classes, and access to adoption services, by having support groups and education, by building a culture of life, by promoting a culture that values and respects human life at all stages. This can be done through religious and moral education, public policies that protect human life, and by creating a society that values and supports families. Ultimately, this requires a combination of these approaches and a willingness to engage in honest and respectful dialogue about the complex issues surrounding abortion. And so that's why I'm here, Mr. Chairman, is to present my bill and stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves. The few key differences that I have in Senate Bill 1284 is it is a life at conception bill. It protects life at conception. It recognizes, as does the overwhelming majority of biologists in the world, that life does begin at fertilization. And also, with the latest reviews from the Pew Research from 2020, the statistics, 93% of abortions occur during the first trimester, which is that is at or before 13 weeks of gestation. And in Virginia, 2020, there was approximately 18,000 abortions. And if Senate Bill 1284 were made law, it would see that every one of those 18,000 children had a chance to live. So lines 178 in the bill, lines 178 through 253 is struck. That deals with the wards of the states seeking abortions. This is struck because under this bill, abortion's eliminated. Lines 278 through 281 removes the allowance for abortion. Lines 288 through 291 defines what a medical emergency is. And lines 297 through 302 outlines the exceptions, which is rape, incest, and the life of the mother with a medical emergency. And it also clarifies, as does the senator before me's bill, that any abortion that is performed under the exceptions must be done by a licensed physician in a licensed hospital. Lines 303 to 304 has the born alive provision. Lines 305 has the penalty of a Class 4 felony, which is the same that's actually in the code section now for abortions that's performed illegally. Lines 306 to 314 provides an affirmative defense for accidental or unintentional injury or death by medical professions, so it covers those. Lines 315 through 319 clarifies that no criminal or civil offenses against women for abortions that has an abortion or chemical abortion, so it does not punish or make criminal the woman. We don't want to pit that, like the Secretary said, the mother against the child. Lines 320 through 325 allows contraceptives and chemical medication for the treatment of a miscarriage. And then finally on lines 336 through 340, it strikes language about the human trafficking signs posted in abortion clinics because under this bill there would be no abortion clinics, so that was not needed. So, Mr. Chairman, last year, the General Assembly, we did something that very rarely ever happens. Every senator and every delegate in the General Assembly voted unanimously to pass 5 pieces of legislation. And we called those the Beagle Bills. And I was on that subcommittee, and I remember Senator Bill Stanley leading the charge about the inhumane treatment of beagles and how that they were, we need to protect them. It was so passionate that I actually wanted to adopt one myself and carry it 6 hours to Southwest Virginia because it was such a wonderful story of how that we could save those animals. And so I would just say to this committee and to our colleagues that I hope we can be as passionate in saving the lives of the unborn children as we did those beagles last year. And that's my bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm presenting today Senate Bill 1483. 1483 is a little bit different because it seeks to restrict abortion in the 3rd trimester to only life of the mother. Currently in code, we allow an abortion for a mental or physical illness of the mother, and I think that we're outdated. And so as I speak to you about this bill, I want you to understand also that I brought this bill because I actually think it's something we can agree on. And there are sometimes things we have to do to, take down some of the political hyperbole on issues so we can actually get the right thing done. I'll start by saying the law that we have in place today in Virginia was written in 1975. That was essentially 50 years ago, and the advancements in medicine are staggering. And in fact, the age of viability in the United States of America has moved from 28 weeks to 24 weeks and in some cases 22 weeks, which really outdates where we are with our code in Virginia. When a child can live outside of the womb, there's absolutely no reason to abort that child in order to protect the mother. And I can speak to that. A mother may not may need to not be pregnant in the third trimester or beyond 24 weeks, but you can deliver that child and give that child to the NICU, where there are revolutionary advancements. In fact, in the past 2 years, I delivered a baby at 23 weeks that had had none of the benefits because of the urgency of the delivery, of interventions that we provide before delivery, and that baby went to the NICU, went home 11 weeks later, perfect. So we really need to align our laws with what is best medical practices. In addition to that, I would suggest that our laws in Virginia are extreme in comparison. I'll pass out this map. I'll keep one. This is a map of Europe, and it is color-coded to show you the limits on gestational age for elective abortion all over Europe. None of them are to 40 weeks. None of them are beyond 22 weeks. And you'll see the code. The one thing that's not explained in here is this red area, special circumstances, Russia, etc. They have a limit for gestational age at 14 weeks, and then they have a medical exception up until 22 weeks. So we are outdated based on best medical practice. We are outdated on standards across the world. In the United States of America, there are only 7 states that have abortion in the third trimester or unregulated. Finally, Mr. Chairman, not President, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, when you look at where we are as a culture, and the people that we represent, Republicans and Democrats alike, the public opinion is in favor of not having abortion in the third trimester. And if you look at this, these are polls all done after the Dobbs decision, where we all saw a swing in, enthusiasm over this issue. And we've got the AP here that says the last trimester, that is 7 months through 9 months, should it be legal? Illegal, 75% of Americans said it should be illegal. If you look at Pew Research that was done in March, so this is just before the decision of 2022, Republicans and Democrats alike agree that how long a woman has been pregnant should be relevant in determining whether abortion was legal. And Gallup, after Pew, the last 3 months of pregnancy, 71% should be illegal. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I know this is a hard issue. I know that we have forces that pull us, but there are some things we have to do out of conscience, and we have to also build consensus. This is something we can agree on. We have children, we have grandchildren. I'm sure all of us have seen premature babies born. And I hope that you will really give serious consideration to this bill, because this is something we can do together to actually make the right decision and move Virginia in a much more appropriate position. So with that, Mr. President, I'll turn it over to Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to your discussion.
All right. Thank you very much, all three of you, for your presentations. They were very thoughtful and actually not the same. So there were differences clearly in the bills. So what we're going to do now is have 5 minutes for those people who are supportive of one or all of the bills to testify, and then have those who are in opposition to that.
There's a sign-up sheet.
And
Is there a sign-up sheet?
all right. All right, I'll start with the names that I have on the sign-up sheet. And the first one signed up to be in favor is Dr. John Brookshalk. I tried. So come have a seat. So yeah. $13.85.
My name is Dr. John Berchowski. I'm an OBGYN in Fairfax, Virginia. How's that?
Good.
I'm Dr. John Brachowski. I'm an OBGYN in Fairfax, Virginia, and I'm so grateful to be able to speak in support of SB 1385, even though I agree all three bills were very well presented, and I could support them. And they all do not pit mothers against their unborn child. During my residency in the late 1980s, providing abortions as part of my training, I was told by my mentors that the fetus felt no pain, it was just a reflex that you saw both on ultrasound and felt at the end of your forceps during that procedure. Now today, OBGYN research and fetal research have come a long way, as my colleague mentioned, 5 decades after legalized abortion. We now understand that unborn children can and do feel pain well before 20 weeks, and certainly by 15. Fetal surgery and obstetrics and maternal fetal medicine is leading the way in understanding fetal physiology. Good and essential medical practice recognizes 2 patients and does all that is possible to protect both mom and the child from harm. Now that law should do this as well. That's SB 1385, and this bill provides a reasonable response to what has become clear in our experience of medicine. When we know better, we do better. Even if you believe in the right to abortion as a grandma, a mom, a father, a grandfather, as I am, you would want your grandchild or child, born or unborn, to be given pain relief, anesthesia during an excruciatingly brutal or painful experience. Protect us common decency, find the common ground that we've been talking about this morning, and help care for our most vulnerable and defenseless. Please vote for this pain-capable bill as people of goodwill, maximizing the good and beneficence and respect and justice, and in this case, dare I say, for my second patient, its autonomy. This bill is a critical advancement in the responsibility of the law to reflect what we know in medicine and science. As a wise doc once told me, it's not medicine and science we should fear, but the folly of us humans. During a D&C, the most common method of abortion, once the fetus is fully formed, significant tissue damage occurs, and it's the result of the dismemberment. That's an ACOG practice bulletin. Although the neurons of the cerebral cortex begin development at 8 weeks and are completed by 20, it appears that neural connections between the thalamus and cerebral cortex are made starting at 17 weeks, and as indicated with science and testing, that it could be as early as 15 weeks.
All right, could you try to wrap up?
I will. And finally, the cortex is not needed to, contrary to the assertions, needed to emotionally process pain. That was consciousness without a cerebral cortex, a challenge for neuroscience and medicine. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right, Kristen Day.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having me this morning. I'm Kristen Day, and I'm the Executive Director of Democrats for Life. I represent pro-life Democrats who support the dignity of human life from womb to tomb. So we have an opportunity for a much-needed conversation about the complex issue of abortion. In December, we issued a poll, and we found that 82% of Virginians said that they want you, our elected officials, to find common ground and consensus on the issue of abortion. So there are many areas of agreement. I'd just like to reiterate what Senator Newman said, that we oppose punishing women, and this bill contains that. I signed a letter with 70 pro-life leaders that said that we do not want to criminalize women for seeking abortion. So I want to make sure that you all know that, and don't repeat that. We want to criminalize women. We also, in the pro-life community, agree that we must treat women with ectopic pregnancies or miscarriages. That, again, is protected. So some have called this a total ban on abortion. So I just want to make sure that you all know that a 15-week or a third trimester ban would only affect 2.5% of pregnancies in Virginia. So 2.5%. So this bill is not radical. A third trimester bill would not be radical. Again, like Senator Donovan said, most of Europe has a 12-week abortion limit. So a 15-week limitation would put us more in line with Europe. And I just want to counter, in Germany they have a 12-week limit, but require counseling before an abortion. And in that counseling, they try to talk the woman out of the abortion because they know the dangers. And finally, I'd like to talk about who abortion affects, especially to my Democratic colleagues here. Abortion is, according to the Guttmacher Institute, 70% of women who seek abortion are financially insecure. So minority women are also overrepresented in abortion numbers. Democrats for Life, and I'm sure all you agree with me too, believe that families with less means should have the same opportunities as their wealthy counterparts. This bill is a starting point that we can all come together and start addressing the inequity for pregnancy outcomes. Because right now, we talk about how women we want to make sure that poor women have access to abortion. Who is advocating for poor women to have access to bring that life to reality? So we force poor women into abortion only. So we have an opportunity here to move this conversation forward and find consensus on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of this issue. So I urge you to, let's change this paradigm in Virginia. Instead of us versus them, let's make it us versus us for them. And if you, on the Democratic side, feel uncomfortable with these bills, but you still want to have this conversation, please just vote present or abstain, or don't vote at all. But please don't vote no. Vote yes to continue this conversation. Let's put women first. Let's put pregnant women first. And let's do everything we can to make sure Virginia becomes the state where we're leading the way in this post-war world, where we want to protect women, we want to support women, we want to have equity for pregnancy outcomes for poor women so they don't feel like abortion is their only choice. So again, I urge you to, let's continue this conversation. Let's not kill it here today. Let's move this conversation forward. Bring it to the full committee, and let's continue these conversations.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Monique Baruti.
George, you need to tell these people that they can't talk forever.
Yeah. I've already put a little.
Sorry, I'm changing the plans.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Dr. Catherine Michael, and this is my daughter, Leah, my third daughter. I completed my undergraduate at Johns Hopkins and my master's at the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins, where I studied reproductive biology with a certificate in maternal and child health. I then completed my medical doctorate at Cooper Medical School in New Jersey. I'm a mother of 3, and I'm here to support SB 1385 as well as the other bills, including SB 1483. So to start, the CDC and Guttmacher have estimated that approximately 400 to 500 abortions occur in Virginia at 15 weeks gestation or later on an annual basis. That is without any pain or consideration of the fetus, what they're experiencing. So that's over 1 per day, fully formed child that is being aborted. Currently, because of the evidence that fetuses can feel pain early in the second trimester, the standard of medical care calls for direct fetal analgesia and anesthesia, so that's both the prevention of pain and the prevention of consciousness during fetal surgery, beginning at least by 15 weeks. The methods that are currently used to end a fetal life after 15 weeks are ones that would be excruciating, including either the amputation of limbs or a medication-induced heart attack that has been found to last 2 or more minutes before the fetal life is ended. Embryological development occurs early, and pain sensory mechanisms and neurophysiology. The human nervous system is becoming established by 6 weeks of gestation, and the nerve synapses for spinal reflex are in place by 10 weeks. Pain and touch receptors, which are called nociceptors, begin forming at 7 weeks gestational age. The neurotransmitters that are specific to pain processing appear between 10 and 14 weeks gestation, which is before this 15-week limit that we are discussing. The spinal nerves needed to transmit the pain to the thalamus, which is the part of the brain that interprets the pain, have formed by 15 weeks gestation. The human brain cortex doesn't fully mature until the age of 25 years old, and yet we know infants, children, teenagers, anyone below the age of 25 is able to experience pain and dislike it. As well, studies have shown that individuals and animals without a cortex do experience pain. Lastly, Guttmacher, which is the pro-abortion Institute has an article determining that the data suggests women who seek later abortions after 15 weeks or after 20 weeks do so less likely for the reasons of fetal anomaly or life endangerment, though we know this bill does have an exception for life endangerment. Instead, 40% of women seeking abortion after 20 weeks delayed their decision due to the trouble deciding about an abortion or disagreements with their male partners about abortion. These women need help and support, not abortion. Abortions later in pregnancy are more dangerous than pregnancy continuation and birth. The idea and the myth that's often shared that abortion is safer than pregnancy continuing is only relevant in the first trimester. Once these procedures are done in the second and third trimester, they pose great risk to women, including hemorrhages, embolisms, uterine perforation, and death.
Need to wrap up.
Okay, it's never medically necessary to abort in the third trimester. Overall, in order to protect both fetal human life and grown women, we must pass this pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Molly.
How much time is she doesn't want to use the last
10 minutes on each side.
each person?
No.
Not exceeded 10
No, they haven't.
minutes.
They're-
10 people.
Go ahead.
I'm Molly, and this is my son Levi, and we're in support of the conception bill. So I found out I was pregnant in May and thought there was no way this was happening to me. I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship and jumped into a new one that ended the week before my whole life changed. From the moment I found out, I questioned if I could even handle having a baby. Wouldn't it just be easier to get an abortion and be done with it? I was working and in school full time, and I had to think through all the things that were going on in my life. I was terrified, and when I told the father, he chose not to be involved. My closest friends told me they would support me no matter what, but others pressured me to get an abortion, saying he wasn't even a baby yet. But I'm grateful I didn't go it alone. The day I found out, I went home to my parents and was welcomed with open arms. This led to my first encounter with the Pregnancy Resource Center. The nurses and counselors were not judgmental and just wanted me to feel loved and supported. And even though my baby was barely the size of a blueberry, I saw his flickering little heartbeat on the ultrasound for the first time and knew I could never go through with an abortion. He was real and alive, and he deserved a chance at life. And throughout my pregnancy, I received physical and emotional support from the center through weekly counseling and an education program that gave me access to free baby items while learning about my pregnancy and parenting. I was always greeted with excitement, which was a huge encouragement. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't exactly excited about becoming a single mom. Most days I was terrified, but the excitement from so many people who loved and cared for me helped me get through the hard days. My most incredible support is my family. They loved on me from day one, making sure the baby and I were well cared for, and I would not have made it without my family, and especially my mom. She's always been my biggest supporter, and my pregnancy was no different. She checked on me daily, and anytime I was worried, she was the first to calm my nerves and talk through things. She was always by my side, including standing next to me as I brought my baby into the world just 2 weeks ago. When I took that pregnancy test, I could never have known all the wonderful support that would happen. Now that my baby is here, I couldn't imagine my life any other way. My world may have changed, but there are braver options than abortion. Women deserve the support like I got, and most of all, babies like mine deserve a chance to live.
All right, thank you. All right, that finishes the time for those in favor of one or more of the bills. Now we will have those who are opposed come forward.
Hi, my name's Erin Dinan. I'm a mother who chose to have an abortion after 20 weeks. I urge you to reject the abortion bans before you today. During one of the most difficult times of our lives, we were lucky to have an incredibly supportive team of people at our hospital center that helped inform us of our choices and guide us through the process. Our provider was able to explain everything to us in a way we fully understood. I considered everything when making this choice. I knew that I did not want our baby to suffer, and I knew that ending the pregnancy was the best way to do that. The night before, I held my stomach and hummed lullabies to our baby we would never get the chance to meet. I still knew this was the right decision. Everyone deserves the chance to make their own choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Jessica Gertz. I'm a mother and a physician in Richmond, And in 2020, I underwent an abortion at 21 weeks after my fetus was diagnosed with anomalies that were not survivable outside the womb. I was free to make this very personal and very difficult decision for myself. I didn't want to risk my life going through a potentially traumatic labor and delivery. I did not want to have to tell my son that his sibling would be born possibly unable to breathe or without a heartbeat. I didn't know. My daughter, who was born less than a year later, is here today because I had this right to choose. Make no mistake, the bans proposed today are aimed at people exactly like me. I urge you to reject the proposal before you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dr. Susan Lanny. I am a maternal fetal medicine physician, the subspecialty of OBGYN, which specifically deals with high-risk pregnancies. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the American College of OBGYN, of which I am a fellow. I emphatically oppose all three of these bills. I'd like to start by addressing the pain concern. There is no science behind the 15 weeks. There is no agreement as to the definition of pain as opposed to a noxious stimuli, nor when a fetus actually feels pain. Typically, patients have not even had their anatomic surveys to determine whether there are fetal anomalies which may be incompatible with life, as Dr. Gertz said. Thalamocortic fibers begin to appear at about 23 to 30 weeks, and electroencephalography suggests that the capacity for functional pain perception in preterm neonates probably does not exist to a significant extent before the beginning of the third trimester. I would argue to the OBGYNs that are here that delivery by shoulder dystocia and cesarean section, especially one for arrest of labor or arrest of descent, is a traumatic procedure. And yet, we do not anesthetize those fetuses. A shoulder dystocia, when performed correctly, the release maneuvers will actually fracture a fetal bone 25% of the time. 25% of the time. And that is with doing the procedure correctly. It is designed to release a shoulder that's been impacted behind the pubic bone. We do not anesthetize fetuses and impending neonates for vaginal delivery or cesarean section. It makes no sense to discuss pain. I'd like to get back to where I was. These bills grossly violate all three of the basic ethical principles outlined by the Belmont Report. Respect for person, the first one, includes autonomy. If you've never read the Belmont Report, I would advise you to take it to bed tonight for a little bit of light reading. These bills impede the physician-patient relationship by intercalating persons who have no reason to be involved in the relationship. Medicine is medicine. There is no justification for politicians and their respective agendas to direct the physician-patient relationship. There is no standard in any other branch of medicine where this is true. Access to abortion is health care. Pregnancy causes such radical physiologic perturbations that in some cases simply being pregnant exposes a patient to the risk of dying. A good example of this is my patient with Marfan syndrome with a dilated aortic root. Safe abortion saved the life of this mother. Speaking of mothers, as a member of the Virginia Maternal Mortality Review Committee, on whose behalf I do not speak, I know what causes mothers in Virginia to die. Diabetes, heart disease, obesity, hypertension, hemorrhage, sepsis, cesarean delivery are the cardinal sins of, and including the cardinal sin of being black, are the usual suspects. People with these conditions have markedly increased risk of dying as a result of pregnancy. Limiting access to abortion furthers already existing health disparities and perpetuates poverty across multiple generations.
Can you wrap up?
Absolutely.
We're going to have a couple more speakers.
Absolutely. There's a physician shortage, okay? And having felonies on one's records prevents licensure and credentialing of physicians, which would worsen access to care. I don't look good in orange, and I really don't want to wear it every day. Fetal viability is also a moving goalpost, as well as in the Commonwealth across the nation. It is some areas is designated as healthcare deserts. A general hospital may not be able to support a delivery of a baby below 24, 26, or even 28 weeks. because of lack of equipment or lack of trained personnel. Additionally, I have cared for many patients who have had 28 to 30-week babies that were weighing less than a pound, were estimated to weigh less than a pound, and birth weight proved that they were less than a pound. There are no tools small enough to provide the resuscitative measures for these neonates. The choice to actually resuscitate that baby or provide comfort measures is also a physician-patient issue.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
I'll stop there. I could go on forever.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sylvia Budali. I am a certified nurse midwife in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm the legislative chair for the Virginia affiliate of the American College of Nurse Midwives. I'm here to speak on behalf of the ACNM and the Virginia Legislative Nurses Alliance. On behalf of advanced practice midwives and nurses in the Commonwealth, I'm here to voice concern with the bills that are being considered today that would restrict abortion access and criminalize providers for providing that care. Midwives care for all pregnant people, and this includes those individuals who seek abortion care. The ACNM and VLNA uphold that abortion care is health care and access to this service is essential. Advanced practice midwives, either as first trimester abortion providers or as providers of reproductive care generally throughout the lifespan, support patients as they seek abortion. We are there to provide compassionate care and help navigate both the clinical and social hurdles to receiving one, of which there are many currently. We are particularly concerned about provisions of these bills that criminalize medical care. Criminalizing medical care such as abortion does not prevent it from occurring. It simply removes access to safe and equitable care. And it increases the risk of harm, which will disproportionately harm people, particularly people of color, who are already facing the most barriers to care, as well as consistently higher maternal and infant mortality rates. Each patient that comes to their provider to privately get the health care they need are making thoughtful decisions about their health and well-being. Patients have the right to the privacy and the right to make decisions about their own reproductive health care, including abortion, if that's their wish, based on medically accurate information and without coercion. Our patients and their families depend on you to protect this right. For these reasons, we ask you to oppose any measures that may restrict that right.
All right, thank you. We'll have one more here. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and subcommittee members. I'll keep it short this morning. On behalf of Repro Rising Virginia and the Virginia Reproductive Equity Alliance, all bans that aim to push critical abortion health care out of reach and punish patients are a shameful attack on our bodies, our lives, our futures, and the health and well-being of our communities, including those most vulnerable amongst us. We reject Senate Bill 1385, Senate Bill 1284, and Senate Bill 1483. This harmful, inhumane, and dangerous legislation threatens the health and safety of our communities, and we urge this subcommittee to do the same.
All right, thank you. We've had testimony from both sides, and we will now take up consideration of the bills.
Can we have some closing remarks, Mr. Chairman? When we do each bill, maybe.
Yeah. All right, yes.
If people have written comments on either side, could they?
Sure. If anybody has written comments, we'll be happy to take those and pass those on to the full committee that this will go to next Thursday.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. All right. First bill is Senator Newman's Senate Bill 1385.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and if I may, the practice of medicine it's a beautiful vocation, but in that process, we focus on care of the patient, and I am so uplifted and impressed with the dignity and fortitude of women as I take care of them over time. And I have to tell you that any woman that is seeking an abortion in the second trimester is somebody who desperately wants to be pregnant. And she is often faced with staggering situations and options. And I really think this is a very hard place for very hard place for law. And I do have an amendment that I would like to propose to Senator Newman's bill as a friendly amendment that would allow an exception until 24 weeks in his bill for a fetus that had a severe fetal anomaly.
All right. Senator Newman.
Mr. Chairman, as you can imagine, we've talked about this, and I think Siobhan has a really good bill that, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, speak.
Here.
Here.
Siobhan and I have talked about this. She's got a good bill. This does some conforming of. Yeah, my voice is a mess. Siobhan and I have talked about this. Siobhan has a bill that this doesn't quite conform, but it gets closer. And I think, I mean, we could do this, but I would rather just keep my bill the way it is and vote on it up or down, however it is. So I'd just ask the patron of the amendment, maybe if she would just withdraw the amendment. I understand why she would like to do it, but I'd just rather keep the bill, for better or for worse, just like it is.
Then, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I will withdraw my amendment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to be made on the full bill here for 1385?
If I would move to report the bill, and I know there's probably a different perception by some.
All right. We have a motion to recommend reporting the bill.
I'll second.
And there's a second to that motion.
I would just make a substitute motion that we recommend to the full committee that the bill be passed by indefinitely. Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second for a substitute motion, and that takes precedent over the original motion here. That we would pass the bill, recommend pass it to the full committee, passing the bill by indefinitely. Any questions or discussion? All right, can you call the roll?
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi?
Aye.
Senator Pillion?
No.
Senator Suderline?
He votes no.
Senator Donovan?
I wish I could vote for this bill, but without that exception, I'm going to have to vote to PBI the bill.
Senator Edwards?
Aye.
Senator Newman?
No.
Senator Saslaw?
Aye.
Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ayes 6, noes 3.
All right, that recommendation will be made to the full committee, and we'll consider that next Thursday. All right, next is Senator Hackworth's bill, 1284. Does anyone have a motion on that bill?
That'd be passed by indefinitely.
Okay, there's a motion from Senator Saslaw to pass the bill by indefinitely. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a second to that. All right, if nothing further, then we will vote to recommend on the motion to recommend to the full committee passing the bill by indefinitely. And you can call the roll.
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi?
Aye.
Senator Pillion?
No.
Senator Suderline?
No.
Senator Donovan?
Yes.
Senator Edwards?
Aye.
Senator Newman?
No.
Senator Saslaw? Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ayes 6, noes 3.
All right, we will recommend to the full committee passing the bill by indefinitely. And now we have Senator Newman. Senator.
If I could just make a few
Donovan.
closing remarks. We have a conversation to be had. Abortion is not a monolithic thing. And I think we've spoken to that a little bit. Abortion in the first trimester, which might be called elective or on demand, is not the same thing or motivated by the same reasons as second trimester abortion. There's really no standing ground for third trimester abortion. And I would suggest a couple of things to just reference as we consider this. Roe v. Wade in its consideration, noted that the third trimester was different, and it allowed intervention by states because even then, the justices recognized that there was due process for a viable baby, and that could be argued. That viability is moved back to 24 or 22 weeks. If we think we're incapable of providing medical care without having abortion in that gestational age time period, we are out of sync with the rest of the world that is providing medical care, which is often very much admired. And so I think that there are, really, I think this is an area of consensus where we can agree this is the right thing to do. And unequivocally, the medical evidence supports that. So does best practices. I will say, in reference to the challenges of pregnancy, I agree. There's a lot of stuff we have to talk about. And there are budget amendments this year to particularly look at things like chronic disease coordination, getting access for pregnant women to things like housing, child support, education. We should have done that long ago. We have the assets and the ability to do that in the state, and we're going to be moving forward with that. But in this case, we have to talk about this and think about it in very different ways. I want to point out I didn't talk about my bill very well. I was trying to be concise on time. But this bill also codifies non-viable pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that cannot result in a live birth, like an ectopic or a miscarriage or an intrauterine fetal demise. Medical treatment for those diagnoses should never be delayed. And this bill puts a new codified section into the law that would protect those interventions, because delaying on those treatments would really potentially cause great harm and maybe future infertility for a woman. So I hope that you will consider voting for this bill, because I think this is how the conversation's going. We're going to have a conversation about what's different in abortion. It's not one thing. And the conscience, best practices, and medical evidence supports that we restrict it significantly in the second trimester and more so in the third. And so this is a place where we can do that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend reporting.
All right. Is there a second? All right. We have a motion and a second to recommend reporting. All right. We have a substitute to pass it, recommend reporting, recommend to pass the bill by indefinitely, and there's a second to that. So we will vote on the substitute motion, which would be to recommend passing of the bill by indefinitely. Call on the roll.
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi?
Aye.
Senator Pillion?
No.
Senator Suderline?
No.
Senator Donovan?
No.
Senator Edwards?
Aye.
Senator Newman? Senator Saslaw? Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ayes 5, noes 4.
Ayes 5, no 4. All right. Yes, certainly. Yeah.
To the chair and chair of the full committee, this is the way these debates should take place. So thank you, and I know Senator Lucas was committed to that. I know some of you didn't get to speak, but it's a complicated item, and it's an item that there's emotions are high on both sides. But I just want to thank you for the way you handled it and the way the Senate handled it. So thank you.
And I certainly want to thank everybody here, because everybody here did it in the right way. So thank you. And if people want to take a moment to leave, if you want to, but we do have some other bills, but we will get on to them in a moment. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kevorkian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She is.
I can give one of y'all my proxy. I just feel awful.
Yes, yeah. Do you have a list of yeas or nays, or is it self-evident? Okay, got it.
go to school?
VMI. Did you just finish last year? Or? Yes, I just graduated in May. Just like your transition. Yeah. And what after this? You gonna stay here for a while? I hope so. Or at least something of the sort. Yeah. I want to get more involved in government. Where you're from originally? Farmville. Oh, great. Okay. It's pretty dumb. Okay. It is.
Sounds like single-handedly handle this for you.
Good to put a face. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we will come.
Come to order again and take up other bills here. Is Senator DeSteph here? He was the only one not on the committee that had signed up. All right.
He's in rehab, and I did text him, but hopefully he'll be up.
Okay. Well, we'll take up another bill or two before, and then until he gets here, so that's fine. All right, Senator Hashmi.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for this opportunity to present SB 668. There is just one small amendment.
The what bill?
SB 930. Apologize.
Okay.
I have different numbers here, but there is a small amendment that is coming around.
All right.
Do we need to vote on the amendment?
Okay. Is there a second to adopting the line amendment?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? No. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know this is a very sensitive issue, but this is an issue about which I've heard from so many individuals and families who have requested an option to have control over their final decisions as they reach the end of their life. This bill gives terminally ill adults the option to request, obtain, and should they choose, to take medication to die peacefully in their sleep if their suffering has become unbearable. The safety rails around this bill are many, and I will share those, but the most critical issue is that the individuals must be mentally capable of making an informed decision and must have a prognosis of 6 months or fewer to live. So I'll just share some of the safety guardrails that we have put into the bill to prevent abuse or mistreatment of anyone in their final stages of life. For this bill, for anyone to participate in the process of selecting how they are going to proceed in their final months, 2 healthcare providers who are licensed in Virginia must confirm that the patient is terminally ill, has a prognosis of only 6 months or fewer to live, and also possesses the full mental capability to make an informed healthcare decision. Age or disability is not a qualifying criteria for receiving this medication. And if either provider has concerns about the patient's mental capacity for such a decision, the The provider must make a referral to a mental health professional for a full assessment. Medication cannot be provided until mental capacity is affirmed. The patients must make 2 separate oral requests for the medication, and there is a 15-day waiting period between the first and the second request. Once a request is made, it has to be written. It is required, and one person must witness the written request and certify that the patient is making that request voluntarily. Individuals with a prognosis of 15 days or fewer to live may waive that 15-day waiting period. So we really are looking at the last stages of the dying process. The attending provider must inform the requesting patient about all end-of-life care options, including referrals for palliative care, hospice care, and other end-of-life treatment options as are clinically indicated. And no physician, pharmacist, or other healthcare provider is required to participate. There is no requirement that they must assist the patient in this decision. Healthcare providers have civil and criminal immunity if they do choose to participate in the law, as long as they comply with all aspects of the law. And anyone attempting to coerce a patient will face criminal prosecution. Use of the law is not permissible as a permissible reason to deny life insurance payments to beneficiaries, and the underlying illness will be listed as cause of death on the death certificate. And the Board of Medicine shall adopt rules regarding collection of information about the use of this law.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right. Is there anyone to speak in support of the bill?
Morning, Senator. Welcome. And members of the committee, thank you for your time. I'm here to support Bill 930. My name's Richard Morgan. I'm a lifelong citizen of Virginia, and I live in Charlottesville. I had a boyhood friend in grammar school who remained my friend my entire life. He and I attended Hampton-Sydney together, same year. We graduated together. We were ushers in each other's weddings and godparents to each other's children. And when we graduated from Hampton-Sydney, Vietnam was still going on. So we jointly went in the Navy and became Navy pilots during Vietnam. Unfortunately, the rest of his life story got worse because after the war, because of attributed to Agent Orange, he died of leukemia. And I was, of course, as a brother, I was by his side for months at Duke Hospital to watch his grueling death. And I knew he wouldn't want this for himself. And if that weren't bad enough and a dramatic effect on me, 2 years later, one of our other squadron mates and a friend of mine had the same problem. It was a different type of leukemia, and they didn't attribute that to Agent Orange, but it was still another thing where I was involved with the family, writing obituaries right at the time of death. So I was younger, and I just knew this was, it was so traumatic, I knew this wasn't the right way to handle this, but I didn't know what to do about it. Well, unfortunately, in 2019, I was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer. So all of a sudden, what I witnessed in midlife now has become pretty important to me, because there is, what I have is incurable. The cancer has spread to my bones. I've been through clinical trials up at Columbia University. I'm a patient of Sloan Kettering, and I just finished a chemo treatment. I know I don't look like it, but this bill is very personal to me. You'll hear testimony about all the other states that have it approved and stuff like that. This bill is not about life or death. It's about allowing me the choice of terminating my life when I meet all the criteria of the bill to give me a peaceful death, which I call a celebration of my life with my loved ones with my bedside, instead of on morphine being incoherent. And we've all been around people at the end of their life. So this is what I want. My situation, my personal medical situation, I make the analogy like it's a train track coming down the road. It's going to kill me. But I can keep throwing boulders and doing treatments to delay it. But I know the inevitable. So I just feel like this is not a political issue. It's a human issue. All of us at some point are familiar and close to people and loved ones at the end of their life. And so I have a daughter that lives in Oregon, and I could move to Oregon, leave Virginia where I love and my family and friends here, and go out there and do the paperwork and die out there. But why do I want to do that? Why do I want to do this here? So I feel like it's not political. It's a human issue, and regardless of your personal religious or spiritual beliefs, and we're all different and we all respect each other, but we all look in the mirror and we know our soul what we believe. And I personally, my opinion is that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are a spiritual being having a human experience. And what I'm asking for is to transition my human experience at the end of this period in a peaceful way that will I'll die with a smile on my face. So
All right,
I
well,
urge you to support the bill.
Thank you. Anybody else to testify in favor of the bill?
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Stringer, and I live in Norfolk. I'm reading this testimony from a fellow medical aid and dying supporter and volunteer, Barbara Green from Falls Church. From Barbara. I had planned to be at the subcommittee meeting in person, but unfortunately it's been scheduled at exactly the time that I have chemotherapy. I hope you have had a chance to read my written testimony before today's hearing. In July 2022, I was diagnosed with metastatic pancreatic cancer. As a Virginia resident who has been working for quite a while on legislative outreach for medical aid and dying, I suddenly realized that my life-threatening diagnosis meant I would have to move to D.C. in the fairly near future in order to avail myself of their Death with Dignity law. I'm actually in the process of doing that now because the choices of Virginia legislators have made it impossible for me to continue to live in Virginia, where I have spent most of my adult life. Knowing that medical aid and dying will be available to me once I move to D.C. gives me some sense of control over a very uncontrollable illness that has no cure and kills 95% of its victims fairly quickly. I was originally told I had 8 to 11 months from diagnosis and that almost no one survives this particular cancer. 8 months for me will be up in March 2023, so you need to get this done. 20 years ago, I watched my ex-husband die of esophageal cancer. He spent the last several months of his life in bed worrying that he would choke to death, as some esophageal cancer patients do. Think about it. If you had a choice between possibly choking to death or dying peacefully with medication that you could take yourself, which would you choose? Don't deny this end-of-life option to Virginia residents. It's legal basically to poison me with chemotherapy drugs that eventually my body will be unable to handle, but illegal in this Commonwealth to let me die on my own terms rather than waiting through possible months of physical and emotional suffering. I should not have to leave Virginia to achieve bodily autonomy, and do not see how anyone who has watched a loved one suffer through a lingering death could vote against this legislation. Please think about this as you vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julie Hastings, and I live in Chesapeake. I'm here today in support of SB 930 and Act to Support Medical Aid and Dying. When my father became ill in 2021, we searched for any doctor who could give us a definitive diagnosis and treatment plan. When we received a diagnosis of ALS and corticobasal degeneration, the months forward were clear. He would lose his ability to use any muscles to his extremities. The disease would affect his ability to eat, move his eyeballs, and eventually he would either suffocate or starve to death, depending on which muscles went first. He died from starvation. Hospice was wonderful, but in the end, they couldn't manage all of his pain. He was suffering from muscle spasms and cramps that would pull him into a sitting position with guttural moans so deep they still give me nightmares. A 73-year-old man who grew up in a farm town in Ohio, a devout Catholic, raised 2 children, worked hard every day of his life, gave to everyone he knew, always had a smile on his face and a kind word for everyone, In the end, he couldn't communicate his needs to us, his doctors, or even his priest during weekly visits. My dad begged for a merciful death when he could still talk. His hospice doctor said that while they would do their best to keep him comfortable, getting him to D.C. where medical aid in dying was available would be almost impossible. The thought that he could have self-administered medication that would have put him to sleep, followed by a peaceful death on his own terms, would have been a dream, but was an impossible one in Virginia. My dad did not want to die. He was living an incredible life. But as he said in the letter he left for me after his death, simply being alive is not the same as living. Disease took away his control over his life. Having an option in the manner of his death would have given him peace. For 2 years in a row, a CNU study has found that 7 out of 10 Virginians support medical aid in dying, spanning every age group, race, ethnicity, region of the Commonwealth, religion, including 77% of Catholics, and political affiliation. Please keep your constituents' proven support in mind and report favorably on SB 930, medical aid in dying, to give Virginians this option.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you. I'll be brief.
Okay.
My name is Shelby Carillon. I live in Richmond, Virginia, District 12. I'm sitting here in support of SB 930 as an end-of-life doula, so it's a little different vantage point. I sit with people at the end of their life when they are terminal. Pain is part of dying. We labor into this life and we labor out. This bill isn't saying that this is to stop every single person who's dying, but there is people who suffer that can't be alleviated with the treatments that hospice can give. And it's humanity. It's hard as a human being to watch someone suffer, and there's nothing we can do about it. When I talk to those clients I work with, it is on. When I talk to the clients that I work with, I ask them, what do they want their final days to look like? And so I ask you now, when you think of your final days, because we all will die, no matter how much medical advancements we have, that is something 100%. What does it look like to you? Most people describe it as peaceful and loving and nurturing and having their family around them. But there are Virginians who are suffering, who are in intractable pain, and we are doing nothing about it. So I ask you in support of Bill 930. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name's Ann Denton, and I live in Norfolk, and I volunteer for Compassion and Choices Virginia. You'll hear people who oppose SB 930 refer to it as assisted suicide versus medical aid in dying. It allows for the focus to be on suicide and people who want to end their lives. People who would benefit from SB 930 want to live, but their bodies are failing and they are going to die within 6 months, and they don't have a choice, but they would like a choice in how they die, without the specter of pain and suffering, but instead peacefully with dignity. I urge you to report SB 930 favorably out of committee.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is John Mabel, and I support the 930 bill. My story is one of lost my wife of almost 50 years and a sweetheart throughout our early years in high school and college to ALS. If any of you have witnessed that journey, it's not something you want to see repeated, and particularly in its latter stages. There is no remedy, there is no cure, it is an end. It is going to be painful, it's going to be horrific on the individual and all of the family members. Eventually what happens is we, society, administer morphine through hospice or whatever it is. We kill them. We actually euthanize them in the end of life when they would have preferred 6 months before or 8 months before or 2 months before to have this option, this human option that doesn't impact society at large. It doesn't impact the neighbor. It doesn't impact anybody's religious beliefs. It's a sole individual option that we would give to the citizens of Virginia. Other states have done this. Some 70 million people in the country live with this option. They would rather have that option, as you've heard, to do this and under as they wish. It's a human right. It's as much of a right as all the other rights we have to do this, and it should be granted to our fellow citizens. There is no compelling reason to deny this right whatsoever. It has no social, long-range, broad depth impact on society. In those states where they have had this bill legal for years, actually very few people use it. A lot of the people that actually request the drugs and get it don't use it, but it's a comfort to them. It is available to them. It's simply the last and final piece of control we have over our physical body and our lives in unison with our loved ones and our families. Don't leave it up to hospice and morphine and that horrific suffering. My wife was tortured for 3 months at the end of her ALS.
All right.
Awful. I support the bill.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm the last one for you.
Okay.
Good morning and thank you.
Sure.
My name is Judy Welb. I'm from Norfolk, and I am speaking today in support of Senate Bill 930. I am also representing today the Coastal Virginia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. In May of 2022, our local congregation overwhelmingly voted to take a public stand on the issue of medical aid in dying. We believe that how one dies is the last great personal decision an individual will make. Terminally ill Virginians have access to complete range of medical options at the end of life, should have access to the complete range of medical options, including medical aid in dying. The medical practice of aid in dying is in keeping with our Unitarian Universalist principles of justice, equity, and compassion. Further, it recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of those approaching the end of their lives by allowing them to make the decisions they deem necessary to uphold the dignity to which they are entitled and by which they have lived their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone to speak in opposition to the bill?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Maureen Hollowell. I'm representing the Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living, a consumer-controlled cross-disability statewide association. We oppose Senate Bill 930. It is being presented under the banner of choice. Our concerns are under the banner of social justice and disability justice. Some people with disabilities are made to feel their lives are a burden, or that they may make others feel uncomfortable with certain functions that must be performed to sustain life. Misunderstandings and attitudes result in inadequate care and diminished expectations. Most of us have heard someone say, "I could never live like that." Do they say that because they do not believe it is dignified to live with a disability, or because they believe they would not be supported by others? People say all sorts of misguided things due to ignorance and bias. However, once a person actually experiences a disability and, very importantly, receives the needed supports, their outlook on disability often changes and they experience disability differently than they may have initially expected. Our focus must remain on improving, not ending the lives of people with disabilities. The Oregon 2021 annual report on the state's Assisted Suicide Act states, as in previous years, the three most frequently reported end-of-life concerns were decreasing the ability to participate in activities that made life enjoyable, 94% of respondents, loss of autonomy, 93%, and loss of dignity, 72%. Assisted suicide will diminish already scarce supports, increase the potential for coercion, and end the lives of people simply because they have a disability. Support us in living dignified lives and there will be no need to discuss dignified deaths.
All right, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chair and committee, thank you for having me here today. I'm Tom Epps. I'm a family physician of over 42 years. I'm the state co-director of the American Academy of Medical Ethics, and also a part of a work group at the AMA that we 3 years studied this issue. I stand representing the position of the American Medical Association and the World Medical Association, their code of ethics about physician-assisted suicide. Both these organizations refuse to use the term PAS, and the term MAID, as they say the act that the state that the act of a physician given a medicine cocktail with the intent to aid a patient's intentional own death by suicide is what in fact is really happening. I will only use the term PAS. First of all, I find it incredible that PAs and NPs are a part of this. I've been doing this for 42 years. I have a hard time predicting when death will occur. And so I think they're a valuable part of the healthcare team. It's elevating them to a role that I don't think they're capable of doing. The guardrails in there, I have many concerns. Many of the states have mandatory provisions to define capacity, including a mandatory evaluation for depression. It takes, if you pick the right medicine for depression, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for it to work. This bill has a 30 days or less timetable that you could actually go through with this. I also worry about the right to die becomes an obligation to die. The disabled, the poor, the mentally ill, people with Alzheimer's are all at risk eventually. The need to self-administer the medicine is one that works over time. In Canada, when they passed PAS within 3 years, 95% chose the physician to give it to them. That's euthanasia. The insurance carriers do not have the greatest record of choosing to treat expensive cancers, offering PAS as a less expensive alternative. In the bill, the report of death is the basic cause that the patient chose to do the assisted suicide, as opposed to actually the fact that they chose physician suicide. If that's not in the legalese, we can't track it at all. Okay. I think PAS is like cut flowers. They look beautiful in a vase, but wither because there are no roots at all. I spent countless hours counseling and treating suicidal patients in my office. Many more hours treating those who tried to end their life. I firmly believe that the AMA Code of Ethics states correctly PAS is not compatible with the physician role as healer. That code has been a part of medicine for over 2,500 years in the Hippocratic Oath. A famous Virginian once said, "If men were angels, there would be no need for government." I rephrase that. If physicians were angels, there would be no need for ethics. I beseech you not to begin to rewrite our code of ethics.
All right, thank you. Next.
Senators, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue today. My name is Bill Furtick. I drove up this morning from Virginia Beach, and I want to give you my background just a little bit. My first employment, my dream job, was I was a police officer for 25 years. Then I had an off-duty accident and became paraplegic. I had 30 fractures, a head injury, and I was on a ventilator for 3.5 weeks. When I came back to consciousness, I too had to make the decision, coming down from heavy medications and facing the fact that, like Maureen Hollowell said, you never think you want to be able to live a life in a wheelchair. I've had a fantastic life. Right. But I'm depressed. If you're not depressed, when you wake up and realize what happened, you're not human. You are depressed. So, fortunately with a strong willpower and a good kick in the pants family, I got through that brief decision-making process, and I moved on. I moved on to return after only 10 months to work at the 911 center for 5 years. Following that, I moved to a full-time position as director of the Spinal Cord Injury Hotline nationally with the United Spinal Association. And I just retired from there after 16 years. In my police, I take the time to give you that background so I can refer back to it. In my police career and in my 911 service, I participated in, had the good fortune to participate in saving people from attempting to kill themselves because they were depressed. One instance comes to mind. A fellow had his car running. He was in his car, in his garage, in an attempt to end his life, but a family member knew about it and called us. He was depressed. I was able to get him out of the car, get him outside. He got a chance to move forward. He got treated for his depression. He's fine. He just had a temporary setback. In my career in law enforcement and in the 911 service, was very experienced with the fact that all first responders and medical personnel are dedicated, trained, and implored to preserve life for the same reason. Get people past a hurdle, whether it's an immediate medical hurdle, depression, whatever, get them some treatment, put them in a position to move forward. Then fast forwarding into my career with the United Spinal Association hotline, we reached out to people that we found in this kind of depressive state all over the country, including here in Virginia.
Can you try to wrap it up?
I will.
A couple other people
In my personal experience, the opportunity to end one's life is disproportionately used against people who are suffering from depression, and having joined the largest single minority of people who are discriminated against, people with disabilities, that among all minorities. I believe this will disproportionately affect people with disabilities who are under the radar and nobody's paying attention to. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. All right, we need to wrap up pretty quickly here, so the rest of you come up and sort of try to keep it brief, so as you can. So,
thank you. I'm Dr. Sheila Fury. I'm a physician in Richmond. Been practicing medicine for over 25 years. This bill is, in fact, the sanctioning by a deliberate act of commission by a physician to cause the premature death of a patient. The bill is not about providing comfort during the final stages of life, but a direct method to end life prematurely and with intent. This action, outside the doctor-patient relationship, would be termed homicide. This bill is seeking not to push the envelope from what we are witnessing with the treatment of COVID-19 patients, but to throw us over the cliff. Patients and their families were coerced into signing do not resuscitate orders and then denied life-saving treatment. The patients were isolated, told they did not want to be a burden to their families. Their families were prevented from visiting, and they were left to die alone, without care, without compassion. All of this for a hospital bonus amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient. Let us look to our neighbor to the north. In Canada, it is legal to euthanize, the kind word, a person not only for the end of life, but for being poor, mentally ill, disabled, and then you can have your organs harvested. This bill is about money. This bill is about the government medical establishment cesspool of corruption, and it must stop.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. I'll be brief. My name is Tom Torreshow. I'm with the Virginia Catholic Conference. We oppose the bill for two fundamental reasons. One is we believe that no one should be left behind, no one in their struggle of any nature, chronic injury, depression, life-terminating illness, should be left behind. And assisted suicide places the disabled, the elderly, and historically underserved communities at heightened risk of abuse, coercion, and medical mistakes. And as we've heard, I think a lot recently, in a profit-driven healthcare system, assisted suicide creates a deadly mix, allowing insurance companies to deny life-saving treatment while paying for cheap, lethal drugs. And that is exactly what we've seen in the states who have adopted assisted suicide. And so, lastly, since there was a reference to ALS, I'll just be brief. ALS, there's a man by the name of Thomas Middleton who was diagnosed with ALS. He moved into the home of Tammy Sawyer in July of 2008 and died by assisted suicide later that very month. Middleton had named Sawyer his estate trustee and put his home in her trust. 2 days after Thomas Middleton died, Sawyer listed the property for sale and deposited $90,000 into her own account. It took a federal investigation into real estate fraud to expose this abuse. Sawyer was indicted for first-degree criminal mistreatment and first-degree aggravated theft, partly over criminal mistreatment of Thomas Middleton. But the Oregon State agency responsible for the assisted suicide law never even noticed. Abuse is a real threat, and we would just urge you to please apply caution and please oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else want to come forward? So.
I'm Susan Musket with Pro Family Women, and we oppose Senate Bill 930. We believe society should provide assistance and help to the vulnerable, not give them the tools to take their very own lives. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I'm Susan Franz from Williamsburg. I'm a nurse. I've watched many patients suffer. I've watched my own family members suffer, and I agree with those in support of the bill that it's a horrible thing to watch. But I'm going to I agree with all the ones who are standing against this bill and all the arguments they've made, so I'm not going to make those arguments again. I'm going to make a different argument. God is the author of life. God determines when we are born and when we die. And there will be an eternal consequence to pay for voting in favor of this bill and authorizing others to assist in the death of people. And that is my final argument.
All right,
thank you.
God holds grudges, huh?
Excuse me?
So you're saying God holds grudges,
God says do not murder.
All right. We have this bill now up before us, so.
Mr. Chair, can I make some final comments?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really thank all those who presented, both in support and opposition to the bill. I understand how profoundly sensitive this issue is, and it is a personal decision. It's a personal decision made by individuals, their families, and their physicians. I want to respond to a couple of items. Disability is not a terminal illness. And so this bill does not apply to a disabled individual who is not facing limited life expectancy. Depression is not a terminal illness, and so this bill does not apply to individuals who are suffering from depression and should surely seek out treatment to assist them. We've heard from many Virginians from all across the Commonwealth who support this bill, and overwhelmingly 75% of the emails that I've received have been in favor of the bill rather than in opposition. And so I ask that the committee consider and pass this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We recommend it be reported to the full committee.
All right, we have a motion to recommend reporting and a second for that. Any discussion or anything? All right. Can you call the roll?
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi,
Aye.
Senator Pillion,
No.
Senator Suderline,
No.
Senator Donovan,
No.
Senator Edwards,
No.
Senator Newman,
No.
Senator Saslaw, Senator Barker.
Aye.
Ayes 4, noes 5.
All right, then, do you want to make a motion to,
PBI.
yeah.
Move to PBI.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to recommend passing by indefinitely. Call the roll.
Senator McPike,
No.
Senator Hashmi,
No.
Senator Pillion,
Yes.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Donovan,
Yes.
Senator Edwards,
Yes.
Senator Newman,
Yes.
Senator Saslaw,
No.
Senator Barker.
No.
Ayes 5, noes 4.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll move forward. All right, last bill will be Senator DeStef. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's Hashmi's,
Okay. I think it's Senator Hashmi. Yours?
Oh, my mistake.
well.
I thought it was.
Yeah. All right, Senator DeStef.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this bill is the same bill we brought last year, which is the Associate Physicians Bill. This committee continued the bill with a letter to go and have it studied, but I think there was a misinterpretation issue, as I understand it, in the clerk's office, so it never got studied.
Okay.
And I think, is that pretty accurate? All right, I want to make sure I don't misstate the facts on this one, but there seemed to be a mistake, so it never went to that study.
Okay.
In that time, there's been additional number of folks who have graduated medical school because we've increased the number of slots in medical schools. We've never increased the number of residencies. That's done at the federal level, but that's not been increased. So you have students who've passed step 1, 2, and a lot who have passed step 3 of their boards and still have not been able to get a residency. Part of this was because during COVID there was a backlog and things didn't happen the way they were supposed to, and it just kind of exacerbated the problem. We've gone from 7 to 8 to 10 and now growing. I'd like to yield my time over to Dr. McDermott, who is a gentleman who brought this to me with some other doctors and has much more firsthand knowledge. And he'll give you some great examples, but really more of the background and a lot of the terms that are beyond me. He's the subject matter expert. I'm just the mouthpiece or facilitator at this point of the bill.
All right.
My name is Dr. Glenn McDermott. I've been in practice for over 40 years. My original practice was the First Urgent Care Center in Virginia 40 years ago. And I've run into a massive problem looking at health care in Virginia and this country that I've written about, Virginia Pilot article on lack of residencies, and this problem is on critical. The problem is right now people do not have access to primary care or specialty care, and it's very dangerous. Day to day I deal with it. Patients running out of the medicine cannot get into their doctors or specialists. They have seizures, cardiac problems, and I've been practicing long enough that we had good medicine before. And part of the problem is poor planning on the federal level, and hopefully we can correct some of this on the state level. The poor planning on the federal level was we've increased these medical schools, as Bill said. So we graduated all these people under the guise that they're going to be doctors. They did all the requirements and everything. We didn't increase residencies. And this has created a bottleneck that's unacceptable, and it's dangerous. It's a national security issue if we get in a war, not having enough doctors. And this is impacting everyone. People in this room will tell you they can't get into their doctors. Serious problems. So I'm trying to outline that where this is coming from, because That's one issue that you guys can't solve, and I'm working on at another level. But it needs to be attended to. And now the other way to do it is we have these fully qualified people. They have completed medical school, completed their boards. They've done nothing wrong. They've spent maybe 10 or 15 years doing this. And through no fault of their own, they're stuck in this position. And I think it's the government that needs to look at how do we solve it. Now, the Medical Society of Virginia put out a paper there with it, and they mentioned that that this is not to solve this workfare shortage. Of course not. Open residencies. Wake up. This is dangerous. The way to solve it is at least a relief valve for these people. And I think it's immoral and unethical to mislead these people their whole lives and then do it. All of us that have completed education and done everything right, you can do your jobs. If you're a lawyer, you can practice. The physicians can't. And I will tell you another thing about this. I was one of the earlier physicians that I finished my medical school, passed my boards, and I got my license. Now, they've changed this and they've added this residency, and I understand it, but we need to look at trying to help patients. They are dying on a daily basis with this. I can give you a million examples, but I think that looking at the residency thing, here's the problem. So the Medical Society put out that 38,000 residency positions were filled, and it looked like everything was fine, 99%. Well, what they left out, there was 48,700 applications. These are not applications for unqualified people. These are people that have passed their boards, have the degree. And so at what point are we going to give them the opportunity from a moral standpoint, and then another opportunity to help people, that are in the seeking medical care? Right now, we have no thing. So right now, this is a stopgap measure, and I do not agree with them saying these are unqualified or poor scores or things like that. No, these people are fully qualified. And if you look at it, we do it right now. I am I train nurse practitioners, PAs, medical students for Eastern Virginia Medical School, and I know the levels, and I get people coming in. So if you look at a PA or nurse practitioner, these people have higher qualifications than them to practice with another physician, just like a PA nurse practitioner, follows with me. But I don't know if we can get to this, but it's critical. Just ask your relatives, anyone, they can't get in. Cardiology, there's some neurologists, 9 months wait, 6 months wait. I mean, dermatology, 6 months wait. This is insanity. And the article that I put in said that in a pandemic, we had over 10,000 fully qualified physicians doing nothing. That's the definition of insanity for me. And then what did we do? We had medical students working where healthcare workers were dying, and we had qualified people. So, it's the government thing. You guys can help the issue. Hopefully we can get this through before more people die.
Let me just add one quick thing to that. So Missouri, I believe, was the first state that started this program, and now I believe there's 5 or 7 states? 5 states that have adopted something very, very similar. And the example is, we sat down on level 3 of step 3 of the boards. We talked to a few folks who went through there. Brian is one of the examples that we talked to. He did better than 64% of his class, and he still didn't qualify.
The American graduates.
I'm sorry, 64% of all graduates in America, he still didn't get a residency, again, because he was trying to go in and roughly, 10,000. So basically 25% of the individuals that applied for residencies did not get a residency. I know that Dr. Murphy is working, Congressman Murphy, Dr. Murphy is working on this at the federal level, but this isn't something that's going to be solved in the next 5 years. This is going to take 10 years for that relief valve to happen and to get us caught back up. I believe that the mistake last year of not getting the study to happen was kind of critical. I don't know if the direction is to try to pass this through and see what we can do, work on this, or if it's to this time work with the clerk's office to make sure that when chair requests the study, it actually happens. If there was a procedural misstep, that we don't have that again. I just want to make sure that we get a relief and get in the right direction. again, you have 25% of those who applied across the United States that did not get into residency, and you have folks who have taken their step 3 of the boards, which normally is done after residency, and those folks who have not made it to a residency did better than 64% of those that took it across the United States. So it's not that these are not qualified individuals, it's just the inavailability of the residencies. As we expanded medical schools, we did not expand residency slots.
And if you can pass this today, you'll save some lives.
All right. Anyone wish to speak to this bill? So,
I've got a question.
sure.
So you're saying 25% of resident applicants did not get residency?
48,700 people applied, 38,000 were accepted.
Okay. That's half. Okay.
And they have the qualification of passing the boards and their MD degrees. So these are not applicants.
So you're saying they did not match. Sorry. You're saying they did not match into a residency.
Right, they did not match, right. AMA 2021, 38,106 got positions, 48,700 applied. And the year before, this is compounded. So you have 10,000, almost 10,000 there. The year before, 8,000 didn't match. The year before, 7,000. So you are compounded interest here. So it's getting bigger and bigger, and you're losing people out of the profession that qualified. It's unethical.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So is this combining osteopathic
Yes.
and allopathic?
Well, that's okay. So 7% of the American graduates didn't match. 10% of the DOs, 54% of the foreign medical graduates, all who have passed medical school degrees. So if you put them together, there's a tremendous number floating out there who will be lost from the profession,
right,
which is unfortunate.
All right. Anyone wish to speak to this?
We're opposed.
Okay.
Oh, you're opposed. Yeah, be good.
Yeah.
Morning.
Yes.
My name is Caleb Taylor. I'm with a consulting firm that works in Virginia a lot on these issues, as well as been deputized by Americans for Prosperity, although Ben did make it. We'd like to speak in support of this bill. Virginia in particular has an issue geographically with accessibility to doctors throughout the state. Almost 50% of the state has an accessibility issue right now. And we think that this, along with other measures, would go a long way to solving this problem. And exactly as the doctor said, you will absolutely save some lives by passing this bill.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Yeah. Oh.
Just to reiterate, Americans for Prosperity, we support this bill with enthusiasm. We hope you'll pass it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Johnson, General Counsel for the Medical Society. We are opposed to this bill. Just to make sure we level set, last year it was a unanimous vote in this committee when this bill came forward to not go forward with the bill, instead have a workforce study at DHP like you customarily do. What happened is the bill got carried over as opposed to PBI'd with a letter. So guess what? As the Senator said, no letter. I want to thank Senator D. Steph for meeting with him, and we spent close to an hour this morning with Dr. McDermott and appreciate his passion on this, but it is not something that is ready for prime time because the states, as was cited, that have done associate physicians have a Kaiser headline dated March of 22. Missouri tried to fix the doctor shortage, and now the fix may need fixing. So we want to tap the brakes. It's not clear an associate physician could get med mal insurance. I do not believe they would be credentialed in Medicare or Medicaid. I don't believe they would be credentialed in private health plans. It's these type of issues that we need to look at. Last year's bill had a physical impact statement because anything is going to require extra work, and that I'm not aware that there's a budget amendment in for this year. So we would ask that this bill be referred for study after you PBI it like was intended last year. I'd like Kelsey Wilkerson to share with you. It's a lot of national data out there, and and numbers and who matches and who doesn't. She reached out to our medical schools here, and I'd like her to share with you so you have an idea of the magnitude of the problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank you, members of the subcommittee. I'm Kelsey Wilkinson with the Medical Society, also speaking today on behalf of some of the medical school deans. There are 6 medical schools in Virginia. We did some preliminary study with them. So between those, in the first match process, of course, there's the match, and then there's SOAP, which is the Supplemental Offer Acceptance Program. In the first round, 15 students remained unmatched. After SOAP, there was only 1 student who remained unmatched. That was in 2021. The medical schools are very dedicated to getting positions and employment for those who do not match so that they're able to maintain clinical competencies and work in the profession and therefore pursue employment or pursue the match in the following year. And I just echo Mr. Johnson's thanks to the patron as well.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. As an association policy perspective, we have some reservations about the proposal and really just urging this to be studied. We recognize the workforce issues, don't disagree that these are individuals that may be appropriately trained and to serve for a period of time. If we can set up a program that gives a pipeline for these individuals to come into full practice, that seems like something we should look at, but again, really need to look at it. And just urge you to consider that pathway. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Senator DeStefano.
And, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I've got a pretty good idea that this truly does need to be studied, and a lot of this worked out. There's still some questions on who and how and everything. One of the things we have learned, and I was listening to the conversation this morning, not the full hour, but a good breadth of it, and the good thing is that of the medical students that went to school in Virginia, that stayed in Virginia, because a lot of students, when they graduate medical school, they go to wherever their spouses are, they go back to their home states, et cetera, and then they go through that process, that the ones that actually go through school here, stay here, do in fact find a residency. The problem is a lot of the folks that go to medical schools in New York, Boston, and other areas, when they finish school, they come home, they study for their boards, they do their boards, and then they try to find a residency in Virginia, which is their home state, and they're not finding it. So that's part of the stress with this. So I really would hope we would, I don't think that we're good with passing this right now. There's a lot of unanswered questions. I hope we can actually get this to a study and get it studied so we can truly figure it out and figure out the best approach. I've been working with Secretary Littell on this as well, and everybody's kind of like, let's get it done. We just had that little hiccup last year, and I'm hoping that we can get it done properly this year.
All right.
Second
Okay.
that.
We have a motion to pass by indefinitely with a letter to have it studied. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further comments? All right, call the roll.
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi? Senator Pillion?
Aye.
Senator Suderline?
Aye.
Senator Donovan?
Aye.
Senator Edwards?
Aye.
Senator Newman?
Aye.
Senator Saslaw?
Aye.
Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ayes 9, no 0.
Ayes 9, no
So, committee, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Do you have a 30-second bill?
I'll make it the best I can. This is
Since
not.
Since you showed up.
You've had some weighty issues today, Mr. Chairman, and this is one, but this bill is not. When you're trying to become a physician, we've had situations where people feel like they're afraid to answer the mental health question accurately because they will not get their license. I had a visit from a gentleman yesterday, had a terrible story of a physician who ended up ultimately committed suicide and felt like they left the state because they couldn't answer the question, they'd lose their license. That turned out that was an error, but they brought us, this is a Section 1 bill that has two ways to ask the question.
Okay.
And we feel like it'd be better for the doctors will be more freely able to answer, get their license, and at the same time get the help that they may need.
All right. Is there anybody who wants to testify on this? So,
Mr. Chairman, Scott Johnson again for the Medical Society. I'll be quick. This is a premier issue for the Medical Society of importance. We hear it from our residents and our doctors. This bill also would apply to DHP, so it's everybody, the nurses, pharmacists. We ought to all be on parity on what we ask and get our state so we get a good A+ and move off the C where we are. So I ask you to pass it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, we fully support the measure. Just to give you a sense of how important it is to us, we have this as part of a partnership with the Virginia Nurse Association, Medical Society of Virginia as well. And we're asking our hospitals to do the same thing with their medical staff and credentialing applications. I think it's a very important issue and support. Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry. I didn't
Just here for support.
That's right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Hunter Jamerson for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Very grateful to Senator Mason for bringing this bill. It's important standards, and we hope you'll report the bill.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion? Motion. All right. Motion and a second to recommend reporting. We'll call the roll.
Senator McPike?
Aye.
Senator Hashmi? Senator Pillion?
Aye.
Senator Suderline?
Aye.
Senator Donovan?
Aye.
Senator Edwards?
Aye.
Senator Newman?
Aye.
Senator Saslaw?
Aye, by proxy.
Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ayes 9, no 0.
All right, thank you. We,
My advocates have been sitting here this whole time. I just realized it. I'm going to do it. I don't think there's any opposition.
well,
If you say no, I'll just tell
yeah,
you.
we'll just come back in. Yeah. I forgot. I thought too, so I'm sorry. Yeah. 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 That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. And Senator Stewart wanted his. Yeah. We're done. Yeah.
So sorry. I tried.
Yeah. Huh?